The Illinois legislature could move forward with a measure enhancing the state's red flag laws when they come back after the November election, with some saying that recent Illinois Supreme Court or U.S. Supreme Court ruling, I should say, enhanced the effectiveness of a proposed measure known as Karina's Bill. That, of course, is from State Representative Maura Hirschauer, who advanced this legislation by filing it, but then pushed for it, but it never really advanced. And a lot of people were waiting on the U.S. Supreme Court to make a decision in a case dealing with restraining orders and whether an individual can be restrained from having a firearm if they're the subject of an order of protection, a domestic violence order of protection. So let's tackle that now here with Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop, and you can catch this each and every weekday morning with Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for America's Talking Network on YouTube, where soon Bishop on Air, where we're simulcasting, will only be on America's Talking Network with Illinois in Focus Daily. But let's get to this issue here with the U.S. Supreme Court rulings in a couple of landmark cases. One dealing with the issue of Karina's Bill that State Representative Maura Hirschauer says is bolstered by the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Rahimi. So go to the centersquare.com, where you can see the article, Recent U.S. Supreme Court Rulings Could Impact Illinois Gun Laws. And we'll get down to the bottom here, where in the Rahimi case decided Friday, the majority opinion said those with domestic violence orders of protection can be prohibited from possessing firearms. The court held when an individual has been found by a court to pose a credible threat to the physical safety of another, that individual may be temporarily disarmed, consistent with the Second Amendment. So Illinois State Representative Maura Hirschauer, a Democrat from Batavia, she said that ruling bolsters the need for her bill, Karina's Bill, that requires courts to order warrants for law enforcement to confiscate firearms from subjects of orders of protection. Part of her statement says, quote, while this ruling is a great relief for survivors of gender-based violence, the federal protections affirmed today merely preserve the status quo. And for tens of thousands of women and families, it's clear that that is not enough. She goes on to say, quote, we now know without question what we can do more, and we must. Here in Illinois, she said, we should move forward by enacting Karina's Bill, which will provide clear guidance for getting guns out of the hands of abusers and ensure those weapons are removed sooner, all within a framework that justices have now overwhelmingly endorsed. So that's the statement from Maura Hirschauer about the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Rahimi dealing with an individual who had orders of protection against him. But when I connected with Ed Sullivan with the Illinois State Rifle Association, he's a lobbyist, he reacted to the push for Karina's Bill. Here's some of what he had to share with me yesterday.
Saw that. Now, for Illinois, that doesn't at this point affect Illinois. Saw that. Now, for Illinois, that doesn't. So, one of the things under the Rahimi case is a person, a defendant must have received actual notice of an opportunity to be heard before the order was entered. And so, due process. Illinois State Rifle Association has consistently, on all the different bills that have come out, said, listen, you can't take away someone's Second Amendment rights without due process. And so parts of the Katrina's law will have to be altered because they're going to have to give them due process before they can take a firearm away. And so what are we talking about? Under the red flag laws in Illinois, they have what's called ex parte hearings. Ex parte hearing is where you can charge a defendant without them knowing about it and without them being present and the ability to bring a lawyer to argue their case. And so right off the bat, it would seem under Rahimi that the red flag ex parte part of the statute needs to go away. And so under the Katrina laws, same thing. You're going to have to give someone their day in court before you can act. But beyond that, there's a couple other things in Illinois law that we think are now on life support. Think of times where under bond orders or bond conditions for someone that gets a DUI where they say, well, you have to turn in your firearms. Well, how do you force someone to turn their firearms under a bond condition when they've never been to court? And And so the other portion that I think we really need to take a look at is clear and present danger laws. And so if a police department or a school district signs a complaint on a clear and present danger for somebody, how do you then restrict their gun rights if they have not been, if they've not had their day in court? And so as it relates to your direct question on Rahimi, listen, we don't think truly dangerous people that have had their due process should have access to firearms as well. And so we have been talking to them, and we've, one of the reasons Katrina's law has not moved forward is because of our argument that you need to wait for Rahimi to take place. All right. Well, now we have guidance from the U.S. Supreme Court, and we can go and have this discussion about, okay, if you're going to take them away, well, where's the probable cause hearing? Where's the hearing with the defendant in court? And so they're going to have to adjust the bill as written for Katrina's law.
So the Illinois Sheriff's Association still opposes Karina's bill, and just getting that confirmation from their executive director yesterday, because of the questions of manpower and having a large number of orders of protection that could possibly impact law enforcement having to go out and enforce these warrants, to execute these search warrants to confiscate firearms, let alone, even Governor J.B. Pritzker has raised question about this as well, and we'll have to find those archives as this conversation continues to evolve after the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Rahimi dealing with red flag laws. Even the governor has raised questions about the safety of law enforcement going to execute such types of search warrants. Listen, we had an incident here in Illinois where a couple of sheriff's deputies up north were shot when they were essentially breaching a home where a suspect was armed, and their parent had called and said that the individual was possibly harmful to themselves and others, and law enforcement breached the home and shots were fired, and you've seen that story. That was last week, or was it the week before? I was off last week. So yeah, clearly, there's some questions about the safety and security. So we'll be monitoring what happens with Karina's bill in the future. But when it comes to the bump stock ban that the U.S. Supreme Court overturned last week, Illinois State Rifle Association lobbyist Ed Sullivan reacted to what that means for the state of Illinois.
Now, for Illinois, that doesn't at this point affect Illinois, because under the Protect Illinois Communities Act, where the state banned commonly used firearms, semi-automatic firearms, they also included a provision that banned devices that increase the rate of fire. And so that would be bump stocks and switches that you could put into handguns. And so as we stand today, bump stocks in Illinois are banned. Now, we do have a court case, multiple court cases before the Supreme Court that we're hoping that they'll take in the next 2 weeks. If the Supreme Court would declare that unconstitutional, then bump stocks would be back in play for Illinois.
So you've got the U.S. Supreme Court that could take up Illinois' gun and magazine ban, while it's still in the Southern District of Illinois federal courts with a scheduled bench trial for September 16th. Yesterday, when we reviewed this, the U.S. Supreme Court hadn't really had much other scheduled, but now they have added to their schedule, including opinions to be released on the 26th, the 27th, and the 28th. But those are non-argument days when opinions will be released. The day that those looking to see if the Supreme Court will announce to take up the state's gun and magazine ban challenge on preliminary grounds. Those are the order list issuance days. We had one on Monday, and nothing was listed for the Illinois cases. And it looks like they don't have anything else scheduled for July, August, or even into September. So clearly, at least as of right now, it looks like the action in the challenge against Illinois' gun and magazine ban is going to be in the Southern District of Illinois, not on preliminary grounds, on the merits. So we'll be watching that for you as well. But one thing that the bump stock ban case, where the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the bump stock ban, you had the dissenting justices, the liberal justices, used language in there when they were describing what preempted what prompted the ban on bump stocks that the ATF enforced under the Trump administration, and that was the 2017 Las Vegas shooting, where the liberal justices wrote in their dissent that these bump stock devices were attached to the firearms that are commonly available, and they used the term commonly available firearms. Sullivan says that term commonly available is going to be beneficial to those arguing against the banning of certain types of firearms.
Yeah, and so the bright spot for us is when you have the liberal justices using language like you just said, commonly used firearms. We think that is definitely something that will affect our challenge to the PICA law. They're using our language. They're using exactly what we've been saying the whole time. And so we think that signals something that will be favorable to us for sure.
So we'll be watching, see what happens. Of course, we'll monitor any updates from the U.S. Supreme Court. If they take the case on preliminary grounds, if they don't, then it means on the merits, they're moving forward with the challenge against Illinois' gun and magazine ban that was enacted back in January of 2023. All right, it is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for daily updates with America's Talking Network and the Center Square. Again, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right, we'll see you back here tomorrow morning with Illinois in Focus Daily.